Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Charles Chauvel, is this a split call?
It is, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Charles Chauvel.
Well, here we go. A spiteful comment from the Minister of Arts, Culture and Heritage, setting the tone for the debate as he has done in respect of this matter ever since it began. Because the reality of this entire issue is that had that member not had such a spiteful hatred for Helen Clark, which he repeats ad nauseam at every opportunity, this legislation, sir, would not be necessary. We wouldn't be taking up Parliament's time with it at the moment. Because the reality is, when Labor left office, this park was ready to go. Everything was ready. Everything was ready. And that member, because of his petty, spiteful, nasty, bitchy little hatred against Helen Clark, couldn't stand the idea that this project would proceed as planned. So what did he do? Never mind our proud traditions of bipartisanship around commemorating our fallen. Never mind the need to expedite the commemoration of Gallipoli. That member stopped the project in its tracks. And that's why we're here tonight, having to pass special legislation in its first reading, legislation that is actually on its face objectionable because it suspends the RMA, it suspends the planning process. It is now a matter where Grant Robertson and Annette King have had to go to Jerry Brownlee, not to that worthless minister, because that minister wouldn't have any power or authority to grant these guarantees. But Grant Robertson and Annette King have gone to Jerry Brownlee, and Jerry Brownlee very properly, in the spirit of bipartisanship, has said, yes, this isn't an ideal situation. We will actually grant you some concessions around process to make sure that our suspension of the ordinary rules, forced on us by the spiteful Minister of Arts, Culture and Heritage, who just can't stand the idea of Helen Clark having credit for anything, actually proceeds. And that's the position we're in tonight, sir. The position that we're in on this side of the House is that we are having to support this legislation because we are patriots. We do want to see this park completed in good order in time for the Gallipoli commemorations. But we don't like the fact that it has to be forced through this House without Resource Management Act approvals, without the ordinary processes that would normally apply to it, that would have applied had the minister sponsoring this bill not allowed his spite to interfere with judgment, his hatred of the idea of Helen Clark having a legacy, and introducing this legislation as he has years late in order to expedite this project. And that's the problem that we now face tonight, sir. We are, contrary to what the earlier speaker said, we are hardly giving this legislation accolades. We are saying, well, we are where we are. The anniversary, it's important. It's a couple of years away. This job should have been completed by now. But because of the incompetence of the minister, we are where we are, and we are having to contemplate special empowering legislation in the great Muldoonist traditions of the National Party in order to get this legislation through. That is the political reality, sir. And let me talk about the concessions that our Deputy Leader and our former Deputy Leader have negotiated, as I understand it, with the Minister of Transport. First of all, there's going to be a review panel, and that's going to be established in the legislation and widened to include oversight of the consents that are granted. And given the range of the consents and the overriding of the appeal rights that would normally exist, we think this will give some measure of public confidence to the process if the review panel has this role. It'll report on a regular basis to a select committee, perhaps the Regulations Review Committee or another committee, so that there's proper parliamentary oversight. And there'll be prior consultation procedures with interested stakeholders before orders in council are proposed. We also would like to see a role for the community forum, which is proposed in law, so that it is required to be consulted on the final design of the park. So, sir, this isn't an ideal situation. We'll be proud to see the memorial erected. It should have been in place by now, and it would have been had the events that I've described not transpired. But we are, as I say, where we are, sir, and with the guarantees as to process that Labor has negotiated, we will be supporting this legislation to Select Committee, and we hope that those guarantees will survive.
Have you thought of getting anger, madam?
Holly Walker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to speak on behalf of the Green Party on this National War Memorial